you very much. Well, hello, Iowa. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. What a place. I'm thrilled to be back with the thousands of proud, hardworking patriots in the heartland of America. This is the heartland. As you know, we're just 44 days away from Iowa's first in the nation caucuses. You know I kept you as first in the nation. Don't let other people take the credit. We kept you there. On Monday, January 15th, we're going to win the Iowa caucuses, and then we're going to crush Crooked Joe Biden next November. And we are going to very simply make America great again. I want to thank a very special person, a great woman, actually, Iowa Attorney General Brenna Byrd. Brenna, thank you very much. Appreciate it. What a job. Done a great job. Thank you very much. Also, State Senator Charlie McClintock. Charlie, thank you, wherever you are. There's a lot of people here. Charlie, thank you very much. And State Representatives Bobby Kaufman. Bobby. He's got very good genes, you know that, right? Brad Sherman. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Brad. Heather Hora and Mark Cisneros. Thank you. And former Acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker did a great job. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Matt. Thank you very much, Matt. We also have one of my favorite generals of all time, Keith Kellogg, here. Thank you, Keith. Thank you very much. Great job. Great general, great man. For decades, you watched as a corrupt political class in our nation's capital looted your money, trampled on your dignity, and pushed their radical agenda into every aspect of your lives. You know it very well. But in 2016, you voted to stand up to those liars, losers, crooks, and creeps, and you elected an outsider as your president, and it was about America first. We want to put our country first. They haven't done that in a long time, but we did it for 4 years, and that's why we did so well. That's why it was one of the great presidencies, they say. Even the opponents sometimes say that he did very well. I have to say, take it back, they scream. His people say, take it back. From that day on, our opponents, and we had a lot of opponents, but we've been waging an all-out war in American democracy. You look at what they've been doing and becoming more and more extreme and repressive. They have just waged an all-out war with each passing day. If they focused on our country, it would be a lot easier, because we're going to bring this country to levels that it hasn't seen before. We're going to take it to levels even higher than where we had it just 3 years ago. For 4 straight years, they tried to overthrow the duly elected president. You know about that. With one hoax, witch hunt, and abuse of power after another. Remember Russia, Russia, Russia. Remember all of that nonsense. All turned out to be fake. Then they rigged and sold the election of 2020. They rigged. And since Crooked Joe Biden got in, he's been weaponizing government against his political opponents like a third world communist tyrant. Really no different. You take a look at what's happening, and we're talking about to a lot of people, not just Donald Trump, a lot of people. But we got him. We got this thing. We got this thing. But Crooked Joe Biden's banana republic ends on November 5th, 2024. It's a banana republic. Biden and his radical left allies like to pose as defenders of democracy. You see, he was standing up there not so long ago with the pink and red background. That looked a little bit sinister. I don't know if he knew what the hell he was doing up there, but he was up there spewing the words that somebody wrote for him. But Joe Biden is not the defender of American democracy. Joe Biden is the destroyer of American democracy, and it's him and his people. They're the wreckers of the American dream. The American dream is dead with them in office. It's sad. we had such a dream, we had such an American dream, we had such an incredible administration, but it died when these people came into office. Over the past few years, you've watched Biden and his band of Marxists, communists, fascists try to crush free speech, censor their critics, criminalize dissent, destroy attorney-client privilege, which is something nobody ever thought they'd see in this country, and even attempt to imprison their leading electoral rival by far on bogus charges. That happens to be me, in case you forget. Happens to be me. But somehow I'm not worried. I'm not worried. That's why we're doing this, because we have to straighten out our country, what we've done, where we've come. Think of where we were 3 years ago and where we are now. We're laughed at all over the world. Nobody listens to us. They don't care what we say. We were respected. We were feared, but I don't want to say feared. We were feared, but we were respected. We were everything that a country could be at a level that this country has never been before. It was just 3 years ago. Now they laugh at us. Now they laugh at us. They laugh at a guy can't find his way off a stage. Can't use the stairs for Air Force One, has to use the children's stairs. That doesn't look good. You land in a country and you get off of the children's stairs. They've persecuted Christians and pro-life activists. You know that. They've labeled parents at school board meetings as domestic terrorists. I mean, can you believe it? But they have. You know, when I first heard that, they have actually gone after parents viciously and violently. And when I first heard it, I thought people were just making it up. They haven't made it up. You've seen that. And they're flooding our nation with tens of millions of illegal aliens while rapidly opposing things like voter ID. Why would you oppose voter ID? Voter identification. Why would you do that? Because you want to cheat. That's why. There's only one reason. You have identification for everything. You know, when they had their convention 3 years ago, they had their convention, and you had a pass the size of this book. See that book? It was like that. And it was hanging right here. And it had everything you wanted to know about, pictures from side views, from front views, from back views. That was their convention, but no good for voting. They don't want voter ID. So if Joe Biden wants to make this race a question of which candidate will defend our democracy and protect our freedoms, and I say to Crooked Joe, and he's crooked, the most corrupt president we've ever had, we will win that fight, and we're going to win it very big, very big. And we just left another section of your great state, and I want to tell you the enthusiasm here, there, all over the place, but all over the country, really. We've never seen anything like it. We did great with 2016. We did much better with 2020. The fake news hates to hear that, but we did much better with 2020. Millions and millions of votes more. But the enthusiasm now is even greater than that. I've never seen anything like it, and you understand what I'm talking about, because we have to take our country back. Because the fact is, Americans don't like fascists, we don't like communists, we don't like tyrants, we don't like corrupt politicians like Joe Biden. Without question, this is the worst president, most corrupt president in the history of the United States of America, without question. And I promise you this, if you put me back in the White House, their reign will be over and America will be a free nation once again. We're going to be a free nation. Before Crooked Joe, no president in history ever weaponized the full force of the Justice Department, local attorney generals, and district attorneys against American citizens or people running for office. No president ever tried to deface the Constitution to get the other party's candidate, me, thrown off the ballot. You know, they've been working on that very hard. You know, they always say disinformation and misinformation, almost the same, but not quite. But disinformation and misinformation, they always say, we want to really run against Trump. If they wanted to run against me, they wouldn't have indicted me 4 times and fought like hell to keep me off the ballot. But the fake news, And the stupid people at the Wall Street Journal editorial board, they said the other day, well, they really want to run against Trump. Look, they said that in 2016 and we won. They said that in 2020 and we did much better than anybody. We got the most votes of any sitting president in history. Many millions of votes more than we got in 2016. We did much better. 2016 was good, but we did much better in 2020. The last person they want to run. So, but you have the stupid media, the dishonest media, the fake news media saying, well, you know, they really want to run against Trump. They don't want to run. And by the way, we're about 60 points up on DeSanctimonious and 65 points up on Nikki Haley. But these attacks on the 14th Amendment are interesting because they had no case, and we've won every single one of them. And we've gone before some major leftist judges, and we've won every single one of them. But they attack and attack and attack, and they think you're going to, you know, we're going to demean. They're going to want to demean and hurt and harm and destroy your reputation so you can't run. But in this case, so far, we got to keep it that way. It's backfired. And to be honest with you, I'm much more popular now than I would have been if they didn't do it. If they didn't do it. You've actually got the best poll number. They did a story the other day, one of the big fake newspapers, and they said, this is the biggest he's ever been, and we have to do it. Look, we have to carry it on for another 11 months. Think of it, less than a year now. And 45 days to caucus time in Iowa. You started all. And remember, I said it before, I kept you there. Nobody else. I kept you there. Not your governor, not anybody. I kept you there. And you're going to be there for a long time. You're going to be number one. You're going to be first in the nation. And no president ever sent the FBI to raid the home of his opponent for crimes that he himself actually committed. He committed crimes. This campaign is a righteous crusade to liberate our republic from Biden and the criminals in the Biden administration. They're criminals. They're criminals that think they can do whatever they want, break any law, tell any lie, ruin any life, trash any norm, and get away with anything they want. They want to control your speech, and they want to control your social media. They want to control what car you drive. How about that? Who wants to buy an electric car? They're for sale for nothing. Well, it's okay if you want to go about 5 miles away from your house, but get back quick. They don't go far. They want to talk about your dishwashers and how much water you're going to have in your dishwasher, even though they don't work. And all of the other things that you have that were so precious and dear and that you never really appreciated until now because they want to take them away. Your heating and cooling in your house, they want to change it. They want to change everything. These people are sick. These people are sick. Not in his house, right? Not in his... 1 year from now, the American people are going to fire crooked Joe Biden and the Democrat Party in a political earthquake that will echo all around the world, all around the world. Once and for all, we're going to end the era of hoaxes and witch hunts and censorship and lawless political persecutions. We're going to save our democracy, and we're going to bring our country back from hell, because our country's in hell. Laughed at all over the world. Just this week, Biden's Homeland Security Secretary even admitted that they are weaponizing artificial intelligence to target American citizens for political speech. Did you hear that? He admitted it. Well, at least he was honest. When I'm reelected, I will cancel Biden's artificial intelligence executive order and ban the use of AI to censor the speech of American citizens on day one. All of these Biden attacks on democracy and freedom are happening because the radical left Democrats know that in a fair fight, they're going to lose in a landslide. I mean, think of it. All of the things they do. Who would ever vote for any of these policies? Open borders, mental institutions pouring into our country. Under the Trump administration, we built the greatest economy in the history of the world. There's never been an economy like we had. with soaring incomes, rising wages, and household net worth hitting the highest level ever recorded, by far greater than now and by far greater than at any other time. When I was your president, the 30-year mortgage rate reached an all-time low of 2.65%. Doesn't that sound good? Doesn't that sound good? Today, you can't get the money no matter what you want to pay, and you can't buy a house. Inflation was basically zero, and we had gasoline down to $1.87 a gallon. The American dream was alive and well like never before in our country. People were thrilled. They wanted to get jobs. They had the best jobs, the best job market. Nobody's ever seen an economy like we had. But thanks to crooked Joe Biden and his goons that surround him, today the American dream is dead. It's a dead dream. In the past 3 years, thank you very much, darling. I love you too, actually. In the past 3 years, Biden and the radical left Democrats spent $12 trillion wasting colossal amounts of your money on socialist scams that caused cumulative inflation of over 20%. Think of that. As a result, the average 30-year mortgage rate is now 7.8%, but you can't get it, so it doesn't matter. The typical family lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in purchasing power when buying a home. And thanks to Biden's insane Green New Deal, families can't even afford to buy a car. You can't afford to buy a car. Who'd like to go out and buy a car? Although you might get one electric one now. They were very expensive, but now they can't sell them. They can't sell them. People want to be able to drive for about 45 minutes, you know? But while Biden has crushed the American dream, we will revive the American dream, and we will bring it back bigger, better, stronger than ever before, and we're going to bring it back fast. They'll bring it back fast. It's going to happen very quickly. We're going to drill. You know that. We're going to drill, baby, drill, drill. We're going to get your energy down. We're going to seal up those borders so tight, and we're going to have the largest deportation of very bad people. Very bad people. Shouldn't be in this country. Ever in our country's history. I will quickly end Joe Biden's inflation nightmare, rebuild the greatest economy on record, and I will not rest until your family can afford a beautiful home and a brand new, beautiful car of your choice. Combustion, electric, any way you want it, you're going to have lots of choice, and that's the way it should be. I'm not saying electric cars are bad. They have problems. They have big problems. There is a danger to them, and they don't go far. I mean, it's a big problem. You say, let's drive over to Ohio. You don't want to stop 7 times, right? I'd like to sort of say, darling, let's now fill it up when you get there, or maybe when you get back if you have the right car. With your vote, well, 2025 is going to be. Look, it's going to be the biggest election in our history. It will be. I think 2025 is a chance to be one of the strongest and most prosperous years in the history of our country. We're going to do this fast. You know, drilling goes fast. Those guys know how to drill, but they stopped them from drilling. I was very proud. Anwar in Alaska, the biggest oil field probably in the world, probably bigger than Saudi Arabia, but very big. They closed it up. For 60 years, Reagan tried, and everybody tried. Bush probably tried. Who knows what he did? I doubt it. I doubt it. But Reagan tried to get everybody. They couldn't get Anwar. I got it done. And the first week in office, they knocked out Anwar. They knocked out the pipeline, right? They knocked out our pipeline, the Keystone Pipeline, Keystone XL. They knocked it out, 48,000 jobs. And those pipeline workers who love Trump, by the way, they should fire their union people because the union people endorsed Biden. And the following day after the election, he terminated 48,000 jobs. And those people went bankrupt. Those people suffered greatly. It's no wonder crooked Joe Biden and the far-left lunatics are desperate to stop us by any means possible. They don't care how. They don't care. They don't have any scruples. They're weaponizing law enforcement for high-level election interference because we're beating them so badly in the polls. You take a look. The Washington Post had us up 11. Washington Post. And they apologized to it. Can you believe it? They said, there must be something wrong. He's up 11. Then the following day, they announced we were up 12. And the Harvard-Harris poll just came out. This is a brand new one. We're leading the field with 67, with De Sanctimonious at 9. And Bird Brain is at 8. She's 8. She was another beauty. She said, I will never run against you, sir. I will never run. You know, I mean, look, the Lieutenant Governor of South Carolina, Henry McMaster. Did anybody ever hear of him? He's great. So he was a lieutenant governor. He backed me. She backed another. I'm not going to say because he's a friend of mine now, but she backed somebody else. I thought she'd back me because I was always very nice. But, you know, sometimes nice in politics doesn't matter. And Henry McMaster was great. He was a lieutenant governor, and I wanted to make him governor. So what I did, I moved her over there. He became governor. He's done a fantastic job. And I got her. You know, she was fine. Bird Brain. There's a reason for that name, isn't there? And the other guy, I got him elected. He was elected because of me. And he forgot very quickly. I got him the nomination. Then I got him past a very hot politician at the time, who turned out a couple of years later to be a crackhead. But at the time, he was a very hot politician. They said, he's going to be president someday. And I said, well, Ron said to me, I don't think I can beat him, sir. I said, you beat him. Look, you just got the nomination. Thank you very much, President Trump. You just got the nomination. It was very interesting. He was losing by so much. I say to everybody, if George Washington and Abraham Lincoln came back to endorse him, it wouldn't have meant a thing. He had no chance. And I endorsed him. He went up like 40 or 50 points almost immediately, and he ended up winning. The people that he was running against, a good person. I didn't know him, so I didn't feel so guilty. I didn't know him. Somebody said he was a rhino, so it makes me feel better. But the person that he was running against was up by numbers that were not beatable. And when I came out and endorsed him, it was a whole different ballgame. And then I got him passed. We did 2 or 3 rallies. I think we had the lowest crowd was 48,000 people. We had tremendous rallies for Ron De Sanctimonious. That's why I call him Sanctimonious. I should take the D out, Sanctum, but I want to have a little relationship to his name. Remember, he tried to change his name. Do you remember? He tried to change his name to Ron DeSantis. It's Ron DeSantis, DeSantis. And I sent him a note. Never change your name in the middle of a campaign. It's not a good thing. But what we did was pretty amazing. We got him elected, and then 4 years later, the press is screaming at him, will you run against the president? And he said, I have no comment. I said, he has no comment. That means he's running. We got to hit this guy. And my geniuses backstage, I get paid all this money. They said, sir, don't bother talking about, because people don't care about loyalty. I said, I think they do care about loyalty. See, I think they do. I think they care a lot about loyalty. And we hit him very hard, and he's been falling out of the air like a very seriously wounded bird, right, to the ground. And it's a very pleasant thing to see. Now, it looks like he's gonzo, but we never want to say that. We got to get this thing finished. I never want to say, you know, on television today, they said the primaries are over. I said, don't listen to that. Don't listen. Nothing's over. I've seen things that are over, and bad things can happen. You got to get to the polls. You got to get to caucus, and you got to do your job, and we got to win. And then we got to focus on November, and we got to beat this crooked guy that's in office. And I never spoke about him this way. I was respectful, you know, modestly. How can you be respectful of this guy? He doesn't know anything. He can't put 2 sentences together. And he's negotiating our nuclear package with Kim Jong-un, who won't talk to him, by the way. He won't even talk to him. North Korea won't talk to him, but he likes me. He likes me. You know, for 4 years, you had no trouble with North Korea, did you? No trouble whatsoever. Started a little bit rough, right? Rocket Man, little Rocket Man. He said, we've got a red button on my desk, he said. I said, I have a red button also, but mine's bigger, better, and it works. Mine works. And then, no. And then I got a call from North Korea, and they wanted to meet. We met, and we really got along. We got a great relationship. You know, the press hates to hear that. They say when you have a great relationship. It's good to have a good relationship with people that have nuclear weapons and lots of other things. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. But we got along, and President Xi, can you imagine President Xi, who's a piece of granite? He's tough and smart. He's at the top of his game, and this guy walks into his office and talks. He walks into his office and falls asleep. That's what happens. You know, I said to President Xi of China, I said, could I ask you a question? Do you have much of a drug problem? No. We have no drug problem. And what do you attribute that to? He said, quick trial. I said, what's quick trial? I sort of knew, but he said, I want to be nice, right? I said, what's quick trial? He said, we immediately give trials to drug dealers, and if they're guilty, which is probably about 119%, I would say they don't have a great chance, we execute them. And because of that, we no longer have a drug. They used to have a massive drug problem years ago. Every drug dealer is responsible on average for the life of the dealer for killing 500 people. And by the way, destroying families, terribly destroying families. And if we want to get rid of drugs, I'm sorry. I don't know that this country's ready for it. I think you should be ready for it because you take a look. But that's what you have to do with drug dealers, But we're totally dominating Biden in the general election, beating him by 6 points in the Harris poll and a whopping 18 points in some other polls. Can you imagine 18 points? A friend of mine called me who's not in politics. He says, could I ask you a question, President? What? How come you're only winning by 18? He doesn't realize they have certain constituencies that bring them up to like 38 or 39. Actually, brings them up to 38, 39, and he's at 35. So that tells you, in other words, that's pretty bad. But they do. They have a sort of a base of almost 40, and we don't have that base. We have to go out and earn it. And like in 2016, we just ran the whole East Coast of the country, and that made up for California, which I actually believe that if they didn't have rigged elections out there, if they didn't have all the paper ballots, they send out like 36 million ballots, and nobody knows where the hell they're going to or coming from. I think a few people know where they're going to, and a few people know where they're coming from. But I think if you had a real election and Jesus came down and God came down and said, I'm going to be the scorekeeper here, I think would win there. I think would win in Illinois, and I think would win in New York, which is all places that, in theory, I mean, who in New York, when you see what happened, hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants pouring out all over Madison Avenue, Fifth Avenue, people are so angry. Even Democrat politicians now are going after Biden. The mayor is going after him. They're all going after him. But who would say that this is acceptable? I think you can win New York. I think you can win New Jersey. I think we can win Virginia. States that in theory would be with, but I have a different theory. I think for years we could have won them. These elections are rigged. Our elections are totally rigged. And we got to do something about it. The radical left Democrats rigged the presidential election of 2020, and we're not going to allow them to rig the presidential election of 2024 and destroy our country totally. Every time the radical left Democrats, Marxists, communists, and fascists indict me, I consider it a great badge of honor. I do. Because thank you very much, I appreciate this, but I'm being indicted for you. Thanks a lot, I appreciate it. Now, I'm sure nobody in this crowd ever heard of Al Capone. Nobody, who would ever? Scarface, right? He's got a scar from here to here, meaning he had, right? This was not from playing tiddlywinks, like tiddlywinks. This was tough stuff. He only got indicted once. I got indicted 4 times because I'm questioning a crooked election. But we're not questioning it. We know the results. We know it. And when we go through courts, if we ever even have to do it, because you have presidential privilege and also we should never have to do that. But if we do, we want to redo the election only from the standpoint, we want that election. We want to look at it very carefully. We have so much information. There was so much corruption in that election. You take a look. It's incredible. Just the other day in Georgia, 3,600 votes that were duplicated so that you had double votes. Almost all of them were for Sleepy Joe Biden, right? Every single vote. You take a look what they do and what they play and what the Democrats have done for a long time, but it's a disaster. And we have to get in and we have to clean it up, and we want to go paper ballots. We want to go voter ID, same day election. No more mail-in ballots. We don't want mail-in ballots. Never forget, our enemies want to take away my freedom because I will never let them take away. I'm never going to let it happen. Your freedom. They want to silence me because I will never let them silence you. And in the end, they're not after me. They're after you. I just happen to be standing in the way. That's true. You know, if I wouldn't be running for office, or if I was in 5th place or whatever. Oh, I felt badly, though. I just saw a poll come out in New Hampshire. Ron is in 5th place. Well, that's a hell of a laugh. That's a guy that's voting for Trump, I'll tell you. He is. He's my friend, actually. But that is one hell of a laugh you have. I've never heard that before. But no, he's in 5th place in New Hampshire, but I wish him luck. We wish him a lot of luck. We love disloyal people, don't we? This is far more than a campaign that we're doing. We have everyone involved. This is the greatest political movement in the history of our country, probably the greatest political movement in the history of the world. There's never been anything like that. You know, there was a man, Pat Buchanan, a good guy, conservative guy. And, you know, it's not that you know Pat Buchanan. Look at that. Good. Good guy. Wow. Young people, they know him. He did well in New Hampshire. He came in, I believe, 2nd place to Bush. He came in 2nd place. And that gave him a massive career. I mean, it was an amazing life he had. And he's an older guy now. But that gave him like an amazing political career. He was a great pundit. Came in 2nd place in one state. We've won everything. We've won everything, including the presidency. We actually won the presidency twice, but we've won everything. And for the second time, I won every state. I won every single state in the primaries, and then went on to get many millions of votes more than we did the first. The totally corrupt New York Times said to me, somebody asked me a question, what went wrong the second time? I said, what went wrong? We got millions of more votes. You know what went wrong? The election was crooked. That's what went wrong. And who would have thought it would happen? I campaigned. I did like 7 rallies in one day. I did like 5 rallies. And these are big rallies. These are big. And this is just for our friends. We're going to start the rallies when it gets a little bit warmer. Because honestly, you have no place where you can even have them. Because we'll get 50, 60,000 people. And we know because those are front row shows. Am I right? But we're going to start them when the weather gets a little bit warmer. But now, in all fairness, that's not going to help you because you've got January coming up. So it's not going to help you guys, but we're going to have very big ones. But who would ever thought a thing like this would happen where you go out and you run and you think you're doing well and you're getting 50, 60, 70,000 people. We went to South Carolina recently, a couple of months ago. We had 83,000 people show up. We went to Texas. We had over 100,000 people. So you go home and you think you're going to sit down, watch television, and watch this great election. Now, that happened in 2016 because we got them unprepared. And they said, we'll never let this happen again. We're never going to let it happen again. Hillary Clinton said, why didn't they do that for me? And they actually tried. What happened is they had no idea the level of popularity that we had. That's what happened. They did try. They underestimated us. These are very dishonest, very crooked people. But with your help, we're going to keep fighting for Iowa families. Nobody's fought more for the farmer than I have. Nobody's fought harder for Iowa. Nobody. There's nobody. Together, we ended the NAFTA disaster, the single worst trade deal ever made in our country, and replaced it with the best trade deal ever made in our country, the USMCA. It's the best deal ever made. In fact, so good that Mexico and Canada want to renegotiate the deal right now. And I would tell our people in Washington, don't do it. Don't do it. We suffered with NAFTA for decades. It was such a horrible deal. Do you know they made typos in that deal? Nobody knows this. They made typos or numbers. The numbers were much bigger. They say they were typos. They didn't even change them. They just accepted them. For years and years, we paid much more because of typos that were made that nobody wanted to go back and correct. Legally, you're allowed to correct a typo, but nobody wanted to do it. Nobody wants to talk about that. The worst deal we ever had, NAFTA, probably the best deal we made was the deal I made with China, but I don't talk about it because of COVID. But we made a deal with China. They're going to buy $50 billion worth of our product, and they agreed to 15, and I heard 15. I said, what's the number? 15. I thought they said 50. It's true. Is that true? I said, how much are we doing here? They said 15. So I thought they said 50. So during the course of the negotiation, I said, are you close to getting that 50 billion number. And they said, no, it's 50. I said, no, it's not. You told me 50. They said, no, we told you 50. I said, no, you told me 50. Here's the story. Just go and tell them 50. So they told them 50, and they agreed to it. Do you believe it? That's when I told you in Iowa, stay with me. Because, you know, we went through a little period during that negotiation, right? It was a little nasty out there with China. You know, China is a seriously good negotiator. They're tough and smart. And they have tremendous, it's amazing. Their energy is tremendous. They want to make these deals where they destroy you. But I said, just hang in. And the farmers did. And I had about 30 farmers in the White House. It was incredible. And I said to them, many groups, manufacturers, but this case was farmers. I said to them, you know, I'm going to get you so much subsidy from other countries, and you're going to have subsidy. You're going to have everything that you always wanted. And I was interrupted almost simultaneously by 5 farmers. Sir, we don't want subsidy. We just want a level playing field. That's all we have. That's the only group that ever said that. The other people, they'll take all the subsidy you can get them. They didn't want it. They just want... These guys were amazing. This was in the middle of this problem we had with China. I had to turn it off with China. But they said, we don't want subsidies, sir. We want a level playing field because nobody can beat us with a level playing field. I got them much more than a level playing field. And, you know, you had one of the greatest deals ever made. China, $50 billion. Remember I used to say, don't worry, it's going to work out good. I knew where we were going exactly, but it took a little time. You had to be a little bit tough, to put it mildly. They're tough. I said, don't worry, go out and buy larger land, get more land, and get bigger tractors. Remember, I said, go out just right now. You can bank on it. Go out and get more land and bigger tractors. And I turned out to be right. And I'll tell you what, the Biden administration is running on our fumes. That's all they're running on. They don't have anything. They're doing everything wrong. They're running on our fumes. I then got the $28 billion straight out of the tariffs that I took from China. I took hundreds of billions of dollars in from China. No other president got 10 cents from China. You can look all the way back. No president got 10 cents. They said, we're a developing nation. Brilliant people, brilliant negotiators. No, we are a developing nation. Well, we're a developing nation, too. Look at our cities. They're falling apart, our Democrat-run cities. We're a developing nation, too. But I got hundreds of billions of dollars in taxes and tariffs from China, and it brought them to the table. And because of that, I was able to get the farmers $28 billion. That's why, you know, I get a lot of heat sometimes. Some of my people, and they're great, they're good people. They mean well. They say, sir, please don't take it for granted that you're going to win Iowa. I said, what do you mean? I got the farmers $28 billion. Of course I'm going to win Iowa. Remember, I came in last time. They said, sir, you sound very conceited. You're saying you're going to win. I said, how the hell can they vote against me? I got them $28 billion. They're going to vote. Do you think Joe Biden's going to get you $28 billion? Any extra money that he gets comes to him and his family. It doesn't come to Iowa. That's been proven, hasn't it? You see, they just found him $5 billion went to him. Remember during the debate, I said to Joe Biden, I said, how come the mayor of Moscow's wife paid you $3.5 million? And Chris Wallace, how's he doing, by the way? Chris Wallace was the moderator. You shouldn't be allowed to ask that question. I said, well, it's true. The mayor of Moscow's wife paid this family $3.5 million. Why did they get it? What did they do that was worth $3.5 million? They weren't able to explain it. Now it's turned out to be a big case. I was right. Chris Wallace, it was like fighting 2 people. Of course, it was really like fighting 1 person because that was a beauty. But now it's turned out to be a very big, really big subject. He got $3.5 million from Moscow, and nobody knows why, and they can't justify it. What did you do for the $3.5? At least say you did something. There's nothing. They didn't do anything. You know what they did. It's called laundering. Just as I promised, I also fought for Iowa ethanol, issuing a historic rule declaring the E15 would be made available all year round, and also letting them use existing pumps. It doesn't sound like much, not very glamorous for a speech, show that you're allowed to use, but that was millions, tens of millions of dollars. They had great pumps, actually better than the new ones. and they wanted to know if they could use them, and they weren't allowed to use them under the legislation, and I gave them the right to use the existing pumps. They were actually just as good or better, and they saved hundreds of millions of dollars. But I was able to do that for the farmers and for the state. Ron DeSanctimonious is a opponent, really a raging opponent of ethanol. He's against ethanol. He fights it. He was fighting it all the time. Now all of a sudden he's saying, no, I'm actually for it. Oh, it's this politician. They're against it when they need it. But you know what? They always go back to their original thought. But I was your ethanol champion for 4 years in the White House. Nobody could have kept it like I kept it, including getting it from 8 months to 12 months. They could never justify that. I said, why are they only allowed to use it for 8 months? They told me something about heat. I said, do me a favor. It's fine. We're going to do it for 12. But we did a good job for ethanol. Together we achieved the most secure border in U.S. history. We built 561 miles of border wall, despite the fact we had to fight the rhinos and the Democrats. You know where I took the money? From the military. I got $700 billion from the military. I said, excuse me, we're taking 10 and we're building the wall, because you couldn't get them from the rhinos, Mitch McConnell and these guys. You couldn't get it. He was not good. You couldn't get it from him, and Paul Ryan was like this a real jerk, a real fool, like a stupid fool. But these guys, they wouldn't give it to you. They wouldn't give it. And now they end up giving trillions of dollars to this character, Biden. And he goes around saying, we'll build a bridge, we'll build whatever you want, trying to buy votes. But it's not working because they are down the tubes. What it is doing is causing tremendous inflation. That's what that does. And that's what's happening in our country. And that's what's killing so many families. I also got Mexico to give us 28,000 soldiers. And, free of charge. I said to the president of Mexico, we have to get you to give us soldiers to guard our border while I'm building the border wall, because we're building this great wall. It's exactly the wall that Border Patrol. I didn't actually like it. I wanted to have concrete plank, like parking garage plank, going up in the air 40 feet, 50 feet up in the air, perfect. But the Border Patrol didn't want. They had to have steel on the outside. They wanted concrete, and then they wanted rebar. They wanted different materials, and they wanted to be able to see through. You had to be able to see through. So I built it as they wanted it, everything they wanted. It was actually more expensive doing it that way than my way. And it was amazing how successful it was. And, for those people that like to say, oh, but he didn't get Mexico to pay for it. Not the whole thing. There was no mechanism. So what I did do is I got 28,000 soldiers from Mexico, and that's much more expensive than having them pay for a piece of the wall. And it was very interesting because they said, we will not pay for that. How could you ask us for a thing like that? I said, no, you're going to pay for it. You have to pay for it. No, we're not going to do it. The president, who I have a lot of respect for, I really like him, even though he's a socialist, that's okay. Can't have everything, as I say. Can't have everything. But he's a great guy, the president of Mexico. And I said, no, you got to pay for it. So they sent their top negotiator to see me in Washington, and I had the people from the State Department. A woman from the State Department who only handles Mexico said, sir, they're not going to pay for this, and they're not going to pay for a thing called Remain in Mexico. That was me. Remain in Mexico was a Trump deal. They were all Trump deals, everything. We had 10 things. I said to Border Patrol, these people are incredible people, by the way, ICE and Border Patrol. I said, give me the 10 most important thing that you need from Mexico and from the other South American countries. They gave me 10 things, all of which were impossible. Catch and release in Mexico, as opposed to, catch and release is we catch them, release them into the United States. I said, no, we catch them and release them into Mexico. I got everything. But I said to them, you have to give us 28,000 soldiers free of charge. And he laughed at me like I was like a fool. We don't like being called a fool. He laughed at me. I said, you can't laugh at me. Why are you laughing at me? You know you're going to pay it, don't you? No, we're not going to pay it. Why would we pay for a thing like that? I said, you're going to pay it 100%. Look at me in the eye. I told him, look at me in the eye. You're going to pay it. No, we're not. I said, yes, you are. Here's what we're going to do. It's Friday now. On Monday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, every car and every product that Mexico makes coming into the United States will have a 25% tariff on it, which is far more money than you're talking about for the soldiers, who you're paying anyway. So you're going to either do it or that. Sir, I'd like to make a phone call. Please come back quickly. He came back within 5 minutes. Sir, it would be our great honor to give you 28,000 soldiers, to have a policy of remain in Mexico, to have catch and release in Mexico, and 7 other things that were, frankly, in many cases worse. And we had the safest border in our history, and it wasn't really that tough. I appointed nearly 300 federal judges and 3 great Supreme Court justices. That was a big deal. I kept my promise, recognized Israel's eternal capital, and opened the American embassy in Jerusalem. Nobody thought that was possible, right? I also recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. So horrible what's happening in the last 6 weeks. Think of it. You go back 3 months, 4 months, but go back 3 years. This is an impossible. This would have never happened. What happened, the attack on Israel would have never happened. Iran was broke under the Trump administration. They were broke because I wouldn't allow any country to buy oil. China, I wouldn't allow them. I said to President Xi, if you buy oil, you're not going to do business in the United States, and I'm going to tariff you at 100%. He said, like you said, we're not doing any business with Iran. Same thing with many countries, France, every country. I said any country, India was a big one. They were a big buyer. Any country that does business with Iran is not going to do any business with the United States. And any goods that you do send in, we're going to tariff you at 100%. So they did virtually no sales of oil, and they were broke. They were broke. And they had no money for Hamas, and they had no money for Hezbollah. They had no money for any of these mini terrorist organizations. Now they're very rich because Biden lifted all of that stuff off. We would have had a deal. If the election weren't rigged, we would have had a deal with Iran within the first week I was back in office. They were ready to make a deal. They were broke. And a Democrat politician last week said on, I think, Deface the Nation, a show called Deface, ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump on Deface the Nation. You know, it's sometimes referred to as Face the Nation. I like Deface the Nation better. But it was on that. Another one was on Meet the Press. I call that one Meet the Fake Press. But they said, well, I will admit one thing. Under President Trump, Iran was broke. Because Iran is the problem, because they have all the money. So not only did we give them $6 billion for 5 people, hostages, or whatever you want to call them, that shouldn't have been there, by the way. They shouldn't have been there. But we gave them $6 billion. Think of that. And then we gave them $10 billion for electricity going to Iraq. I don't know if you know about that, but they sold electricity to Iraq, and we gave them 10. So we gave them 16. And everyone says, oh, that's so much. And that's peanuts. We gave them $250 billion in the selling of oil. They're selling millions and millions of barrels of oil to China, to India, to all these countries that weren't buying under the Trump administration, took off all of the sanctions and all of the verbal thrashings that I'd give these people. I said, if you want to do that, you're not going to do any more business in the United States where they make a lot of money. So we had it done. It was a done deal. And then we had the bad results with the election. Horrible, horrible results. What a different country when you think about it. I'm just saying up here, talking to you, just like I've got 3 people in the room. You know, what a terrible thing has happened to our country over an election. Over an election. Think of our country would have been, we would have had no inflation. We wouldn't have had the surrender in Afghanistan, which was probably the worst and most embarrassing day in the history of this country that the fake news doesn't talk about. They never talk about it anymore because they're really bad. They're fake. It's not what they say, it's what they don't say, because what they don't tell you is far worse than what they tell you. But we would have had a much different country. We would have continued to have the greatest economy ever. But we're going to bring it back. I withdrew from the disastrous Iran nuclear deal. That was one of the biggest things I did for Israel, but nothing happened with it because they didn't, when they withdrew, you're supposed to make a deal. They were broke. They withdrew. You were supposed to make a deal. And with the historic Abraham Accords, I even made peace in the Middle East. We're going to have peace in the Middle East. So for 4 straight years, I kept America safe. I kept Israel safe. I kept Ukraine safe. None of this stuff would have happened. And I kept the entire world safe. And we will again as the 47th President of the United States. We'll do it again. Thank you. I'm the only candidate who can make this promise, and this is one of the biggest promises because our country's never been in a situation like this. We have a man that has no clue negotiating with nuclear weapons. I will prevent World War III. I will prevent it. On my first day back in the White House, I will terminate every open borders policy of the Biden administration, stop the invasion on our southern border, and begin the largest domestic deportation operation in American history. Right? Does anybody want to hear the snake? Do you know what the snake is? Do you want it? Does anybody know what the snake is? It's something, it was a song written many years ago and changed it around a little bit. Should I say it or not? I don't know. Madam Attorney General, should I do the snake? Okay. If the Attorney General wants it, I'm doing it. She's great. So this is really a metaphor. This is a situation that's happening on our border and elsewhere, where we're allowing people to come into our country that are very dangerous. And it's really, I think, perfect. And unfortunately, it's true, because we're waiting for disasters, the likes of which we probably have never seen before. China, just recently, we found out 27,000 people come in, all young men, no wives, family, and children, all young men. What are they, building an army in our country? Other countries from South America, but countries from all over the Middle East are pouring into our country. A lot of bad things are going to happen. A lot of bad things. This is not good stuff. It's a disaster waiting to happen. So remember that when you're hearing these words. On her way to work one morning, down the path along the lake, a tender-hearted woman saw a poor, half-frozen snake. His pretty colored skin had been all frosted with the dew. Poor thing, poor thing, poor thing, she cried. I'll take you in and I'll take care of you. Take me in, O tender woman. Take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman, cried the vicious snake. She wrapped him up all cozy in a comforter of silk and laid him by her fireside with some honey and some milk. She hurried home from work that night, and soon as she arrived, she found the pretty snake she'd taken in had been revived. Take me in, O tender woman, take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman, cried the vicious snake. She clutched him to her bosom. You're so beautiful, she cried. But if I hadn't brought you in by now, you truly would have died. She stroked his pretty skin again and kissed and held him tight. But instead of saying, thank you, ma'am, the snake gave her a vicious bite. Take me in, O tender woman, take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman, sighed the vicious snake. I saved you, cried the woman, and you've bitten me, but why? You know your bite is poisonous, and now I'm going to die. Shut up, silly woman, said the reptile with a grin. You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in. Now that is exactly what's happening to our country. Okay? Exactly. Right? Exactly. Right? Gonna be bad. Gonna be bad. We're gonna do a big deportation. We're gonna get those bad ones out. Remember, mental institutions, prisons, and terrorists are pouring into our country. We're right now the largest caravan. That was my term, I think. I have a lot of terms, a lot of good terms. But caravan was my term. The largest caravan anyone's ever seen is right now coming up through Mexico. Thousands and thousands of people going to pour right into a country. We have no idea who they are. Bad things are going to happen, very bad. I will immediately restore and expand the Trump travel ban on entry from terror-plagued countries, and I will implement strong ideological screening on all immigrants. We have no choice. If you hate America, if you want to abolish Israel, if you sympathize with jihadists, then we don't want you in our country, and you're not going to come into our country. We will restore law and order to our communities, and we will respect our police again. And I will direct a completely overhauled DOJ to investigate every Marxist prosecutor in America for their illegal, racist in reverse enforcement of the law. We will take over our horribly run Washington, D.C. It is horribly run. Have you seen it? It's filthy, dirty, with graffiti all over the most beautiful marble columns, magnificent columns built 200 years ago, 100 years ago. They're loaded with graffiti at levels you've never seen. The roads are disgusting. They're like driving over garbage. And we're going to clean it up, renovate it, and rebuild our capital so that it's no longer a nightmare of murder and crime. Last week, 3 people were killed. Every week, people are killed. Every night, people are hurt badly. They go to Washington. They're proud of their country. They come out, they're frightened to go outside. They can't go outside. You can't. If you go outside, you're making a big mistake. This is our capital. It's never been like that. You know, when I left, it was different. It was much different. But years ago, it was really amazing. Now what they're doing, you know, I wouldn't allow anybody to put their tent up on our lawns, our beautiful parks. Now the parks are loaded up with tents, and they're loaded up with homeless. We have to help the homeless, but we can't destroy our capital. We're going to rebuild our capital. We're going to make it so beautiful. It's going to be the most beautiful capital in the world. And unlike Ron DeSantis, I will protect Social Security and Medicare for our great seniors. They deserve it. Why are we doing this? There's so many ways we can make money. Drill. Much more money than we're talking about. We drill. Got more liquid gold than anybody in the world. We're also going to fight to give much better health care than what you have right now. This is a newer subject, but Obamacare is a disaster. And I said, we're going to do something about it. I saved Obamacare when we got John McCain's negative vote. You know, he voted against it after campaigning for many, many years. He said, thumbs down. It was an amazing night. But we're going to fix it because it's a catastrophe for family budgets. Even Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren, have you ever heard of her? Now, she's Pocahontas because of her great Indian heritage. She even said that it needs to be fixed. Pocahontas said it has to be fixed, so we're going to fix it. We're in open enrollment. You know, we have an open enrollment season right now on Obamacare. And everybody's seeing how staggeringly and brutally expensive their plans have become, right? They're like crazy what's going on with the plans, the way they're up. They're not affordable. Under this complete and total Democrat-created disaster, a family of 4 is paying over $1,500 a month for health care plans with a $10,000 deductible. $10,000, you know, you're going to be hit by a truck. That's a big deal. $10,000 deductible. So you get nothing, basically. You're paying into something, you get nothing. A 60-year-old couple is paying $2,000 a month with that big deductible. We're going to make it much less expensive for people. We're going to make it much better care. And we're going to give far more options to American patients. And we're not looking to save. We're looking to help people. You know, they said, I'm going to attack Obamacare. I'm not attacking it. When we had Obamacare, I fixed it and made it work. But I also made the statement, it will never be any good. It will never be any good. And it is no good. We're going to give you great health care. That's what we're going to give you. On day one, I will sign a new executive order to cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content on our children. And I will not give one penny to any school that has a vaccine mandate or a mask mandate. And this is one I can't even believe I have to say. I will keep men out of women's sports. Do you believe it? Yeah. I will fully uphold the Second Amendment, and I have done that. I will protect innocent life. We will restore free speech. We do not have free speech. And I will secure our elections. Our goal will be, as I said before, one-day voting with paper ballots and voter ID. It's very simple. And by the way, do you know how much money you save on the machines? You'll be spending 1/10 or less to get better elections, safer elections. But until then, Republicans must win so I can get that job done. If you want to save America from crooked Joe Biden, then get every patriot you know. Make sure they're registered Republicans and get them out to vote their local precinct caucus at 7 p.m. So it's 7 p.m. on Monday, January 15th, Martin Luther King Day, and get out there and do a job. Do a job. You know, if we can get the big numbers, there's nothing they can do. They cheat, and they're always going to cheat. We're going to try and keep it down to a minimum. They cheat like hell. That's all they know how to do. That's the only thing they do well. Their policies are, who the hell wants open borders, high taxes, high interest rates, can't buy a home, bad education? There's not a thing they do that's, how can you win elections like that? You know how? By cheating. That's what they have to do. And they cheat, and they don't care, and they don't care how many times you vote. Vote as many times as you can. Where Republicans say, sir, I'm an American citizen. I can only vote once. You know, that's the way it is. And there's something nice about that. But what they do in elections should never, ever have happened. We are asking you to commit to caucus for us and bring as many people as you can to caucus for the campaign. Sign up at ia.donaldjtrump.com. So in conclusion, together we're taking on some of the most menacing forces and vicious opponents our people have ever seen. No matter how hateful and corrupt the communists and criminals we're fighting against may be, you must never forget that our nation does not belong to them. This nation belongs to you, front row Joes. This is your home. This is your heritage. And our American liberty is your God-given right. And we love that you're here. You know, we're going to go out after this is over. You have plenty of time, and we're going to see a game against a place called Michigan. You're going to be watching that? So good luck. That'll be good. But in the meantime, as important as that is, this is more important because we're going to save our country. We're going to save our country. This is our last chance. We stand on the shoulders of American heroes who crossed the oceans and blazed the trails, settled the continent, tamed the wilderness, laid down the railroads, dug out the great Panama Canal, raised up the skyscrapers, won 2 world wars, defeated fascism and communism, and launched our brave American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the face of the moon. What we've done is so incredible. And now we have a horrible situation going on, an embarrassment. Our country's become an embarrassment. Together they made America into the single greatest nation in the history of the world. History of the world. Think of that. Think of that. But now we are a nation in decline. We are a failing nation. We are a nation that has the highest inflation in 50 years, where banks are collapsing and interest rates are skyrocketing. Likewise, we are a nation where energy costs have reached the highest in history. We are no longer energy independent or energy dominant as we were just 3 short years ago. We are a nation that is begging Venezuela and many others for oil. Please, 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 Joe Biden says, please help us, please, please. And yet we have more liquid gold under our feet than any other country anywhere in the world. We are a nation that just recently heard that Saudi Arabia and Russia will be reducing their output of oil and substantially increasing the price, and met that threat by announcing that we will no longer be drilling for oil in large areas of Alaska and other parts of our country. We are a nation that is consumed by the radical left's Green New Deal, yet everyone knows that the Green New Deal is fake and will lead to our destruction. We are a nation whose leaders are demanding all electric cars, despite the fact that they can't go far, cost too much, and whose batteries are produced in China with materials only available in China, when an unlimited amount of gasoline is available inexpensively in the United States, but it is not available in China. And now we are a nation that wants to make our revered Army tanks, they are revered, they're the best in the world, they want to make them all electric, so that despite the fact that they are also not able to go far, fewer pollutants will be released into the air as we blast our way through the enemy territory. And they also want to make our jet fighters with a green energy stamp, losing 15% efficiency, but allowing us to keep our enemy's atmosphere clean of pollutants while we viciously and unceremoniously attack them at levels no one's ever seen before. We are a nation that ended oil exploration and production in the United States just as the price of oil reached an all-time high. What other country would do such a foolish and self-destructive thing? We are a nation that surrendered in Afghanistan, leaving behind dead soldiers, American citizens, and $85 billion worth of the finest military equipment in the world, and also leaving behind Bagram, one of the biggest military bases in the world, and only 1 hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons. Why, oh why, oh why? And we are a nation that allowed Russia to devastate Ukraine, killing hundreds of thousands of people, and it will only get worse. It would never have happened with me as your president, and for 4 straight years it didn't happen. Likewise, the recent attack on Israel would never have happened. They wouldn't even have thought of doing what they did. Iran was broke under the Trump administration. They didn't have the money to fund Hamas and Hezbollah. They didn't have the money to fund themselves. They were going to make a deal, and it was going to be a great deal for us, and it was going to keep the world safe. But those sanctions were lifted, and now Iran is a rich country with $200 billion and another $6 billion for hostages and $10 billion for electricity from Iraq. All compliments of the Biden administration. And China, with Taiwan, is next. We are a nation that allows the radical left to violently attack our cities, leaving behind massive destruction and death, and nothing happens to them. There is no punishment. But when people who love our country protest in Washington, they become hostages, unfairly imprisoned for long portions of their life. We are a nation that has weaponized its law enforcement against the opposing political party like never before seen. We've got a Federal Bureau of Investigation that won't allow bad election-changing facts to be presented to the public, and which offers $1 million to a writer of fiction about Donald Trump to lie and say it was fact, where Hunter Biden's laptop from hell was Russian disinformation, and the FBI knew it wasn't, but 51 intelligence agents said it was, and a Department of Justice that refuses to investigate egregious acts of voting irregularities and fraud. And we have a man who is totally corrupt and the worst president in the history of our country, who is cognitively impaired and in no condition to lead, and is now in charge of dealing with Russia and possible nuclear war, which would be World War III and far more devastating than any of the previous wars because of the weaponry that no one even wants to think or talk about. We are a nation that no longer has a free and fair press. Fake news is all you get, and they are indeed the enemy of the people. They refuse to discuss the Biden crime family, but enjoy covering false indictments of Donald Trump, who has done nothing wrong. We are a nation where free speech is no longer allowed and where crime is rampant and out of control like never before. We are a nation that is allowing Iran to build a massive nuclear weapon and China to use the trillions of dollars it has taken from us to build a military to rival its own. What a sad state of affairs. And less than 3 years ago, just think of it, we had Iran, China, Russia, and North Korea in check. They weren't going to do a thing against us, and everyone knows it. They respected us like they never respected anybody before. Now Russia and China are holding summits to carve up the world. And perhaps most importantly, we are a nation that is no longer respected or listened to on the world stage. We are a nation that in many ways has become a complete and total joke. And we are a nation that is hostile to liberty, freedom, and faith. We are a nation whose economy is collapsing into a cesspool of ruin, whose supply chain is broken, whose stores are not stocked, whose deliveries are not coming, and whose educational system is ranked at the bottom of every single list. We are a nation where large packs of sadistic criminals and thieves are allowed to go into stores and openly rob them, beat up and kill their workers and customers, and leave with armloads of goods but no retribution, where the authority of our great police has been taken from us, taken from our country, where their families and pensions have been threatened and their lives would be destroyed for the mere mention of the words law enforcement. We are a nation where fentanyl and all other forms of illegal drugs are easier to get than formula for our beautiful little babies, and a nation whose once revered airports are a dirty, crowded mess. Yet you sit and wait for hours and then are notified that the planes won't leave. They just won't leave. And they have no idea when they will. They have no idea. Where ticket prices have tripled, they don't have the pilots to fly the planes, they don't have qualified air traffic controllers, and they just don't know what they're doing. We are a nation that has lost its confidence, willpower, and strength. We are a nation that has lost its way, but we are not going to allow this horror to continue. 3 years ago, we were a great nation, and we will soon be a great nation again. It was hardworking patriots like you who built this country, and it is hardworking patriots like you who are going to save our country. We will fight for America like no one has ever fought before. With you at my side, we will demolish the deep state. We will drive out the globalists. We will cast out the communists. We will throw off the sick political caste. And we will rout the fake news media. We will drain the swamp. And we will liberate our country from these tyrants and villains once and for all and like never before. Like those patriots before us, we will not bend, we will not break, we will not yield, we will never give in, we will never give up, and we will never, ever back down. With your support, we will go on to victory, the likes of which no one has ever seen before. We will evict crooked Joe Biden from the White House, and we will take back our country on Election Day 2024. The great silent majority is rising like never before, and under our leadership, the forgotten men and women will be forgotten no longer. We are one movement, one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. And together we will make America powerful again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Thank you very much, Iowa. God bless you. God bless you, Iowa. Thank you. God bless you all.